Hey friends, this is Kaisen, and you're listening to the Handful of Leaves podcast, where we bring you practical Buddhist wisdom for a happier life. Do you feel average? Average in a sense that you're good at a bit of this and a bit of that, but not great at anything in particular. And when you look at people who, inverted comma, made it in life, people who have figured it all out, people who are celebrated for their expertise, that makes you question your life. What do I really want? Am I meant to be doing what I'm doing right now? Should I be doing something else? And the more you ask these existential questions, the more stuck you feel. But what if you're meant to be good at a little bit of everything? And what if not having a clear plan about the future is completely okay? And that's what we'll be exploring in this episode. Cheryl and I chat with Ling Ling, who was an engineer, a trainer, who has a Master of Science in Psychology, and now back to being a student. A jack of all trades, some would call her, and she's perfectly happy being that. It is the combination of courage and curiosity that made her walk the non-linear path with joy. And this episode, we uncover the balance between having a plan and being spontaneous, knowing what to do when we're at a crossroad, and the clear steps of how to get unstuck in life. You also get an insider view of how to answer this classic question from a job recruiter. Where do you see yourself in 3 to 5 years' time? Stick to the end of the episode to hear all of our candid answers to the questions. Now, let's dive right in. It's so good to have you, Ling Ling, to join us on this episode. And I believe we can all learn from your very unconventional path and wonderful experience. So today we have our co-host, Cheryl, and myself to ask you some tough questions that might get a little personal.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Maybe you can share with the listeners through answering this question. If you were to choose between planning and being spontaneous, which would you choose?
Actually, I believe it's good to be comfortable with both, to be able to plan for things and to be spontaneous, because there are times in life when you need to do planning, and there are certain times in life where being spontaneous is far better. So to give a personal experience, in 2008, which is around the Asian financial or the global financial crisis, it was after some years of working as an engineer and a technical trainer, I decided to switch careers from being an engineer to a psychologist, right? So, in order to become a psychologist, I decided to take my first master's program in psychology in the UK. And this particular master's program is special because it is designed specifically for people from other careers who want to join psychology field. It's called a conversion program. So the plan was that in the onset of the financial crisis, after graduation, the financial crisis would be over, and I would then be able to find work in the field of psychology after graduation. Because in the past, when there's a financial crisis or there's a recession, it usually takes about a year or 2 years to turn around. And the program itself was about 2 years or so. So I figured, okay, once I graduate, I could surely find something in psychology. But as it turns out, the 2008 financial crisis lasted much, much longer, and it didn't work out that way. After graduating from my master's program, it took a year, more than a year, to find work, like actual work. It was so difficult to find work in the UK at that time. And not only that, I faced discrimination. I was running out of savings. I worked odd jobs to survive. And at that time, after almost a year of trying to look for work, I really didn't know what to do. I hit like the lowest period of my life. It came to a point where I only had less than £100 in my bank account. And I wasn't too sure whether I should remain in the UK in order to continue to look for work in psychology or to return back to Malaysia, because I'm from Malaysia. So at this lowest period of my life, I was feeling so stuck. I was feeling really anxious. I didn't know what to do. But this spontaneous idea came to mind, was to go on a meditation retreat. I don't know why a meditation retreat, but I needed to go on one. And I needed to make sure that as much as possible, this could be like a really cheap retreat or a free retreat if possible, because I only had so much money in my account. But thank goodness we had Google that time. And from Google, it brought me to a website called Goenka Vipassana. And they had like a center in the UK called Dhammadipa, which is fantastic because they had a 10-day silent retreat in the countryside of the UK. And it's entirely donation based. So it's up to me how much I want to donate at the end of the 10 days retreat. And they provide your own room as well as food, which is fantastic. Also, with a little bit of searching and a little bit of luck, I found a bus company who was able to provide bus tickets for £1 each way, £1 to get there and £1 to return. So I thought, okay, yes, this is fated for me. I got to go to this silent meditation retreat. And this retreat introduced me to Vipassana meditation. So Vipassana is a Pali word meaning insight. So in translation, it's called insight meditation. So basically, insight meditation is the training of the mind to observe bodily sensations as well as content of the mind. Because I was introduced to this meditation technique, it really changed my life totally. Like from that moment on, my life gradually became more calm, more balanced, and even though I've met different challenges in life afterwards, I had greater confidence to face them and to overcome them. So there was that act of spontaneity, allowing the universe or the life to show you paths, show you choices, but also there was that plan of mine, trying to look for work after graduation. So there are times when we need both planning and spontaneity. And you also have to remember that when you plans do not rarely turn out as planned, because as we grow up, we are taught to plan our days, our years, our life. But when we are so focused on our plan, we lose our ability to be spontaneous. And when you're spontaneous, therein comes all the other things that are wonderful too, like seeing different connections, being creative, having more fun and having more play in your life. When we're not spontaneous, we also cut ourselves off from serendipitous moments, all these coincidental connections, meeting random people who could be the best friends or the love of your life, or you could see things in your environment that give you quiet signs that point you down a different direction in life that could probably give you greater happiness, greater love, greater joy. So to me, you need to be able to plan, of course, because that's how things move forward. You to complete tasks, to meet deadlines, but you also need spontaneity to be able to broaden your mind, bring more fun and creativity and so on. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I think that definitely answers the question. And I think it's a very nice balance also, because when you're planning, you're giving yourself direction. And when you're being spontaneous, you're not forcing yourself to the stuck kind of outcome that you want. You're allowing, the world to open up to you, meeting new people, like you say, and the beautiful word that you use, serendipity, right? I hope I'm pronouncing it correct.
Serendipity, yeah.
Serendipity. Yeah. And I was just wondering, like, so you said after the Vipassana retreat, you felt more calm and balanced. And did you feel like you shifted your personality or worldview in the sense that you became leaning more towards spontaneity, or you still, kind of very stuck in the middle of like planning and spontaneity? My English is not working today. Planning and spontaneity.
It wasn't a drastic change. It was a gradual change because what the retreat taught me is that it is a daily practice. It's not something where, you take a pill, you change overnight. If you stop practicing it, you lose the balance of your mind. I don't lean towards either planning or spontaneity. I use my own life experiences as well as gut feeling and wisdom, which is better. Like, for example, right now I'm doing my second master's program. I'm studying the psychology of intercultural relations. And of course, I cannot be spontaneous in my data collection and spontaneous on when I feel like writing. I actually have to sit down, come up with a plan. How many articles do I read in this week, and how many notes do I need to write? Because otherwise I wouldn't be able to meet the deadline. But in between those times, because I'm doing this master's course in Portugal, I would also like to explore and experience how life is like in Portugal. So I need to create or plan spontaneous moments where I can go out and understand the culture, meet different people, and just experience what Portuguese life has, presents itself to me. Yeah. So you can plan spontaneity, and you can be spontaneous in your plans too. Like me suddenly deciding to come to Portugal to do my second master's program. It doesn't have to be one or the other.
Yeah, I really like that. I also have a personal experience. Actually, all my life, I've realized none of my plans go according to plan. Like, I wanted to go to university, right? In the end, I started a business. And because of starting the business, I have more flexibility in time. Then I also went on retreats and meet really great teachers who have changed my life. And yeah, I think it's really about keeping an open mind to have an overall sense of direction. But at the same time, don't be too close minded such that we lose sight of opportunities that are just right in front of us. And meeting you was serendipitous as well, because it was my 1.5 months trip to Amaravati, which is in the UK, that I met a Thai friend who then became your friend, and then she connected both of us. So if I'm not spontaneous and you are not spontaneous, we wouldn't have this conversation. So I really like that, to allow things to unfold by itself. Yeah, it's really
Yes,
beautiful.
yes, precisely. That is like an excellent example, Kaishin, the way we both connected.
Like Steve Jobs said, right, you can only connect the dots backwards. And I'm also wondering, in today's society, especially when you go to interviews, people would ask, or interviewers would ask, Cheryl is a recruiter, I'm not so sure whether she asked this question, what would you do in 3 to 5 years' time? And I suppose that question has the intention of really understanding whether a person or the potential hire or the candidate has a clarity in terms of their career trajectory, etc. But some people just don't know. Like, I could tell you 5 years ago that I have a particular plan, what I want to do 5 years later, which is now. But has it happened? Not quite. Yeah. So I'm wondering, what is your opinion on this? Did you know what you wanted to do in 5 to 10 years' time? And how do you sit with the idea of not knowing?
The easy answer is I don't really know. We cannot predict the future. And I think recruiters, deep down, they also know this, but they ask it anyway just to get a sense of whether this person has a
Cheryl can challenge.
has like a career planning and stuff. But I also want to hear from Cheryl.
No, so the fun fact is I would usually reject people who give me a perfect answer on what exactly they're going to do in 5 years, because that shows that they could be very stuck and they are not open to adapt to different challenges or different situations. So it's actually
A
a
trick
trick
question.
question.
Wow.
Like, you need to have like the kind of direction, but also you need to have the humility to say that you don't know, and you are open to it. But people who are very structured and like, this is exactly what I'm going to do, I'm like, okay, bye.
So I'm quite curious, Cheryl, like, what would be an acceptable answer? Because if people just say, I don't know, it can come across as you don't have your life sorted out.
Well, I think it's the way they answer. Sorry, these questions for Ling Ling, but I'm just stealing the spotlight here a bit.
Now I'm curious to find out what the thoughts of a recruiter. So if I apply for a job and I get that question, I know how to answer it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's how you answer the I don't know, right? Because I don't know could be I don't know and I don't care. Then that is a huge red flag that this person doesn't have the kind of zest for learning or self improvement. But it's I don't know, but I've done things. I've had the courage to try different things. Then that is a definitely acceptable answer, because who gets things right all the time? And companies can't succeed when they only hire people who has done things the way they have done it before. There would not be innovation and creativity and challenging the industry to be the next level. Yeah.
Wow, I really like what you say about courage to try new things. And Ling Ling, I know you have tried a lot of new things over the many years, and your plans keep changing, right? Could you share with us how do you have such courage to try new things, or when you're stuck, you don't know what to do next? What's your guiding question or philosophy?
Actually, every time my career changes, they are done for many different reasons. So sometimes it's because, okay, this particular career path is not working out for me. I don't feel joy. Going to the office feels like a drag, and I could feel my sense of emotional and mental well being like decreasing. So I know I needed to do something. So that one was not so much out of courage, it was more out of necessity. So, for example, um, just like everyone else, I was told from a young age, you must get a good degree, you get a good job, then you get a big house, you find someone, marry, and have kids. I've been told this, all of us, we've been told this, right? So at a young age, of course, I don't know what to do. And I was persuaded to do electronics engineering as my bachelor degree. And I chose that degree was because I was really good in mathematics and I actually enjoyed mathematics. But maths and engineering are different things, as I found out from my degree. So when I did the job, it was okay, but it wasn't something that gave me joy. It wasn't something that gave me excitement. It became like a daily routine, and I could slowly feel like if I continued on this daily routine of being on this hamster wheel, a part of me is slowly like dying. Maybe that's too much of a word, but it just feels like I couldn't be myself anymore. And then fortunately, within the department I was working in engineering, they had, after a year as an engineer, they opened 3 different vacancies. So 2 of them were manager position and one was a training position, engineering trainer position. At that time, I was still young in my career. I wasn't so interested in becoming a manager. And I know based on what was being told, I should be a manager because that should give me more money. But I wasn't interested. My heart told me, yes, training seemed a lot more interesting. I'll be more excited to do that compared to being a manager. And I followed my gut. I followed my heart. I followed where I believe can give me greater joy. I applied for it. I got it. And it changed my career from being an engineer to one step closer to being a training and development professional. At that time, it was called training and development. It wasn't yet called learning and development. So through that work, I met so many different people. I had the opportunity to travel internationally to learn from different experts and bring that knowledge back to Malaysia. I was based in Malaysia at that time, and train other engineers on all these wonderful things that I've learned, all the programs that I've created for them and such. So as I was in that particular role, I did, of course, self-examination and self-reflection. Why is it this particular job give me so much of joy and excitement as compared to an engineering job, right? And then after some reflection, I realized like I find a lot of excitement and joy and creativity when I get to meet people. I get to understand their perspective. I get to learn from them. And also to see how their mind works, to see how they behave. So all of that pointed towards psychology. After 3 years plus of working in this particular role as an engineering trainer, then the financial crisis hit. And I thought, okay, this will be a fantastic time to switch careers. It was courage, but it was also out of necessity, and it also felt right.
Yeah, and you turn inwards in order to find what exactly is the root motivation. It's not just joy and excitement, but it's really about connection. It's about meeting people and learning new things. And that is something that you can find anywhere, which I believe is not just training and development, right? You travel a lot. I believe that's what made you travel because you can meet people also. Am I right to assume that?
Yeah, so I traveled a lot in my life. In my entire life, I lived in 8 different countries. So Portugal is my country number 7. The other country I've lived in was in Serbia for a few months last year. And because of this opportunity to live in different cultures, I enjoy learning different cultures and how people can live very differently, still survive, still find love and happiness and joy.
Right. And now you're pivoted into cultural intelligence as your study.
That's one of the things that I'm studying. That's one of the things I'm also training. I'm a cultural intelligence facilitator with the Cultural Intelligence Center in the US. What I'm studying is called the psychology of intercultural relations. So I study uh, cultural values or cultures of different groups of people. But what I also study is how different groups of people interact with each other, different ethnicities, different generations, just different social groups. And when they interact with each other, what comes out of it, right? So it points towards issues that we face now and that we see in the world in terms of racism, sexism, all forms of discrimination, prejudice. And as a going to be psychologist, right? What is it that I can learn from these experiences? And what is it that I can do to help create a more equitable and inclusive world, our society. Yeah.
I really love how you use your experiences and all this knowledge. Like it's sort of like you absorb all this and it informs your worldview, and you're just so curious to learn a little bit more and more. And although I think you're a little bit hesitant to use the word courage, I feel that courage is a underlying theme that is really driving the way you move. Because speaking from experience, I also understand the complete narrative, right? Get this sort like finance, lawyer, doctor kind of degree, and that's the only right degrees you could do. So I was pressured to take accounting as my degree. And all my friends who knew me, like knew my personality, they're like, Cheryl, you're going down the wrong path. What are you doing? And at that time, I was very certain. I was like, no, I love accounting. It was the only course in my life that made me cry in every single class. Because I couldn't get it and I hated it. And I just like, what am I doing here? Yeah. So then I switched out also. After that, I really couldn't stand all the tears. Is too much. So I just switched out to psychology as well. And I think from my experience, it was really courage, because it's something where everyone around you is not doing. It seems like you're almost like a failure, right? Everyone's continuing with whatever degree, chasing whatever managerial role they're doing, whereas you're kind of like taking a step back and starting from scratch and doing something else. So, in this kind of situation, it seems like almost everyone is against you, right? How do you still like, or what do you use to help you make decisions on going forward, and how do you still like convince yourself that okay, this is the right way to u-turn and go with something else?
Yeah, it can be really hard when especially your loved ones don't support your work. But the thought process that I go through when I make this decision is asking myself this question: what is the alternative? And is the alternative better than the possibility of the option that's presented in front of me or not? So the alternative would be always likely staying on the same path, which I've already tried, and I already know that no matter what I do in my control, maybe it couldn't be any better because I've tried everything that I could, right? And then there are these other options that are presented in front of me, and then I think to myself, will these options be worse or better than where I am now?
But you can never know for sure, right?
No, you never know for sure. So you can come up with different pros and cons lists. You can talk to a whole bunch of people. You can talk to those who have been in their careers and such. But the truth is, we're all emotional beings. We make decisions based on our emotions, no matter how much we try to patch it up or cushion it with facts and pros and cons lists and whatever not. So I remember watching this movie. I think it's called The Second Best Marigold Hotel or something like that. And there's a particular scene in the movie. Maggie Smith, a British actress, was in a taxi and was complaining to the taxi driver, right? And she was in a conundrum. She couldn't figure out what to decide. So the taxi driver says, flip a coin, have the coin decide for you. And then she was like, why flip a coin? And he says, well, you will already know the answer before the coin lands. So if you are really truly honest with yourself, you actually know the answer already. And if you go against your true answer within yourself, you're not giving yourself the opportunity to live your life, to self-actualize. And if you do not know the answer, and if you're not very sure whether to trust your inner answer, it's also okay. It's fine. Just stay where you are. You don't have to make a decision. And when the right pieces or the right information or the right time falls into place, you'll know with great certainty, yes, I need to go. I need to do this. Otherwise, the alternative will be, I'm going to spend 20, 30 years thinking, what if, what if, what if, what if, what if? And that is just as painful as trying and failing, or even worse.
Personally, I find it helpful to then balance the spontaneity as well as the certainty part here, because sometimes when everyone around you are trying to dissuade you from following your heart, if you don't have a very convincing reason, you wouldn't be able to deny their doubts with much conviction, and it wouldn't be very persuasive, right? So then we waver. So I guess that's where planning becomes important, because it's not just all about following our heart and living a carefree life. We want to care, we want to plan, and it has to be practical. So we have to feed ourselves financially, being stable, etc. Not just quit my job because I don't like it, etc., and live in this very distorted worldview. And I know perhaps a lot of times people are doubtful about our decision to switch path, especially in the Asian context. Once you enter maybe secondary school and you choose your specialization, pretty much your path is set. And it seems like you know a little bit of everything, but you're not good at one thing. And when people ask, hey, so what you specialize in? Or what's your trade? I'm like, I'm not sure. I'm kind of a little bit good at everything. And I think that's where it can impair our confidence as well. So I'm going to move into the next theme, and both of you can chime in on what your thoughts are. Do you feel that it is actually okay to be a jack of all trades? Or do you feel that it's better to master one domain and be the subject matter expert?
Actually, I think it's really unfair to pit jack of all trades with specializations to make such comparison, because I think you're really comparing a durian to a rambutan. I mean, some people like a rambutan, some people like a durian, right? Because a specialization requires a specific set of skills, a specific set of knowledge. It's the same with jack of all trades, because they have the ability to see connections in different areas. And those connections bring out creativity, bring out innovation. And they require the ability to be flexible and adaptable in different situations. So I think to compare them both is really unfair. And those who are in the position of a jack of all trades and being compared to a specialization, I feel really sorry for them, because it's basically saying to a fish, you fail at climbing a tree when actually you're built for swimming in the water. So if you're a jack of all trades and you're being told, okay, you're not so good enough in this, be confident in your own skills and your own experience to say, yes, I'm not good enough in this one specific area, but I'm good enough to know this specific area can connect to other areas, which can bring out something a lot more beautiful, or something more creative, or something more innovative, whatever that is. So an example could be, let me think, okay, currently I'm in academia, right? And I'm surrounded by people who are really, really fantastic in their research. They're very detailed in the way that they review journals, and they look at their data and analysis and come up with wonderful findings. But they don't have the skills, or they don't have the experiences to share this knowledge in public. So public speaking is something that they're not particularly experienced in. Whereas like I've also been connected with public speakers, and they're really great at telling stories and sharing inspiration, but behind those stories there's like where's the data, where's the science? So you can, like, I have a little bit of both. I do public speaking because I've been a trainer and a facilitator all this life, but now my interest is moving towards research, because I wanted to make sure whatever I share with the world has a scientific basis behind it, right? So you can tell me, yes, I'm not the best public speaker, I'm not the best researcher, but with these two skills, I can do something that a pure researcher cannot do, or a pure public speaker cannot do. So it's not fair, I think, to make that comparison.
Yeah, and I think it's also really about the self-awareness of knowing what you can bring to the table, what strengths you have or what weaknesses you have, and really owning that in the sense of, okay, I know I'm really good in my data analytics. Then, wherever you go or whatever space you go into, really add value in there, instead of trying to constantly like look out, oh, I suck at like public speaking, I shouldn't be here, and like stuff like that. And I think my perspective comes from in school, I was really into sports. And then I was very curious about all sorts of sports. I would play like badminton, and then after that switch and pick up squash, and then let's pick up like volleyball. And then I would kind of be just like mad at everything, because I was like, I want to try the next new sport there out there. And then I always compare like, oh wow, they're so good at basketball, how do they do it? So it always came from a place of inferiority and competition like within myself. But then I think as time evolved and as I grew, I realized it's really about valuing the curiosity that I have for learning new things and going through the rigor of picking up things from scratch instead of just deepening myself in just one area. So yeah, I think this question can be looked in a different perspective also, in terms of valuing what you have.
Yeah, and I know sometimes it can seem that we are fickle-minded. If we keep trying out new things, people wouldn't see us as curious people. It's just like, make up your mind. What do you want to do? And jack of all trade has a very bad reputation, but there are more research studies that show actually having a general knowledge can give you an added advantage, because I mean, especially in the career space, right, things are moving so quickly. In the past, let's say if both of you were stuck in engineering and accounting, it might be completely obsolete in the next 20 years. So if you don't have the soft skills, you don't have skills like psychology, asking deep questions, for the facilitation, probably connecting the dots will be a little bit challenging. And Shara, I know as a recruiter, probably you've also seen trends, right? That technical role now also have to understand some non-tech stuff and possess some of these skill sets. So I really like how both of you brought in the point that it's not really about either or. It's really what can you offer and constantly evolve. That's again where the spontaneity comes into the picture rather than being so stuck in our old ways. And I'm also thinking from this aspect, there must be a skill that is timeless or that can kind of allow us to evolve. What do you think that skill is that everyone should possess regardless of profession?
Cheryl, would you like to go first since I went before?
Sure, I would also love to hear Kai Xing's thoughts on this as well. I think
Yeah,
this
me
is
too.
this is a very interesting question, right? Because I think when you ask this question about the one skill that can help us evolve, it's a very tricky question because the way humans have evolved has helped us to optimize for survival, but not for happiness. So if we are talking about the one skill that everyone should learn for evolution would be for survival, then I think we are social creatures. Then emotional connection, learning to get to know people, learning to be resourceful, and connect with as many people as possible, I think is very important because there's no person who could go into the world alone and survive it, I think. But if I'm thinking about the skill that one should have to optimize for happiness, it should be learning to be compassionate and like be skillful and emotionally self-regulating. I think that's the one skill that can help people to go through the ups and downs and uncertainties that life can bring to us. Curious to hear both your thoughts.
Actually, it's really, really hard to pick that one skill. The one thing that came really strongly into my mind is mindfulness. And I know this comes from my own meditation practice, but I see how mindfulness has changed my life in many ways. And it can also help in whatever profession you're in, not just in your life, in your profession. Because there are so many benefits, and there are a lot of studies about mindfulness. It can help one reduce stress, bring clarity to your mind. It could help balance your emotions. And we need all of this in the workplace. So when you practice mindfulness and you have clarity of mind, so when you make decisions, you know that the decision you make is not clouded by your own emotions of fear, of anger, of jealousy, or envy. You know you're doing out of clarity of your mind and in consideration of what's going on in the environment, what's going on with other people, and so on. If you practice mindfulness and you're working on a task, be it a work task or a daily task, with that clarity of mind and clarity of motion, you can put your focus on the task to make sure that there's less errors, that every action you take is more intentional, and you know those intentions come from either a place of goodness, of sincerity, of compassion, or out of ignorance. When you're mindful, you are very, very clear on why you do what you do. That's one. Also, with mindfulness, when it comes to social connections, you become a lot more present with the other person. You acknowledge them, you're more open to their perspective, to understanding what their thoughts are, what their feelings are. And in doing so, you build a greater connection with the other person, build a better relationship, and encourage, greater compassion for each other. So I think like the overall skill one must have is mindfulness.
Wow, I really like both perspectives because you can't have one without the other. You can be really resourceful and survive on the planet. But if it is without compassion, it's without mindfulness, then what for? It will just be such a tough and chaotic life. For me, what came to mind was reflection and critical thinking. I can't make up my mind which one is more, but it's with the concept of constantly looking beyond the surface and to also take on the thought that our life is filled with hypotheses. It's like doing research, right? We shouldn't go out there just to prove ourselves right, but we should prove ourselves wrong and take on healthy challenges so that we can constantly improve and evolve. And that's where, again, the theme of this episode, I think it's daring to be spontaneous, to go a different path. I think that's where we see new possibilities, we find new solutions rather than what is presented in front of us or to us. Yeah, so I think it requires a lot of contemplation and critical thinking to see what's beyond.
I do see a connection between what everyone says. I think it's packaged in different words and different probably techniques as well. But I think it all leads to one thing, which is basically increasing the connection to oneself, right?
I think it all boils back to ourselves, right? We must be aware of who we are, what we are, and how we operate in the world. And who we are also impacts the people around us and the environment too. So it's the interaction between the environment and the self. We can see what's outside in the world, but if we don't know what's happening on the inside, how do you know whether what you do has an impact or not, or impacts people in ways that are not so great? So it's that interaction of the inner and outer.
It's like a feedback loop. Yeah, I know some philosophers would say our worldview is shaped because of our social interaction. So, yeah, that's beautiful. So, to wrap up the episode as we're coming to the end, for listeners who maybe are at their crossroads, and if they feel stuck, they're not so sure whether they should move forward with an unconventional path or what to do if they don't know what to do. Do you have some advice in how they can get unstuck and lean into curiosity?
So if you're stuck, it's okay to be stuck because it's a normal experience. Everyone goes through it in some time of their life. We make decisions all the time, and the level of stuckedness can be different at different times, if I could use that word, stuckedness. So you do what you can do. Like based on Kaishin's question much earlier about what if everyone's persuading you to do something else, but your heart says, oh, I need to do this. There are some practical things you can do. So some of the practical things you can do is come up with a contingency plan. So if what you decided doesn't work, what is the alternative? You can also come up with an exit plan. If you face something that's really entirely unexpected, how you're going to exit it with minimal damage. That's another thing you can do. You can also think of listing out why is this path really important to you and share it with your loved ones, because they come from a place of fear and they worry that if you take a path that is unknown, that is untested, that you will face challenges or difficulties and they will have to be involved too. So if you show why this is really, really important to you, then perhaps you can persuade them to support you. So that's another way of doing this. But if you've not reached that level of persuading your loved ones, for me, it's like, it's okay to be stuck. It's fine. When the time is right, the answer will appear.
I mean, that's a perfect answer already. I just wanted to maybe just add on a little bit, not completely new point here, but I think really leaving on the theme of not sure, like, or uncertainty, where you think that you're feeling like this is the worst job I'm in, it's the worst situation, but you never know what happens, right? Moving could be better, not moving could also be better. Yeah. So really just allowing that gap and space of uncertainty, because life is very gray, and I think our worldview, for good or for worse, is always very black and white. But if we are able to start leaning into the grayness of it and find the beauty there, just allowing it to unfold and evolve as well.
I do agree. Quite similar sentiments. I think it's the perception around uncertainty and not sure. It comes with fear most times. And I find it personally helpful to get out of my head, because a lot of times when I feel stuck is I'm using not sure in a negative way. What if I do this, or what if I didn't do that? And then I'll come up with 10,000 different reasons why I should and shouldn't do. And I'm like, oh no, I'm stuck. So which one? Then weighing the pros and cons just made it worse. So I find getting out of my head to just do one thing can help me feel like I'm progressing. And that in itself makes me feel I'm less stuck. And then slowly I pick up momentum. I get more clarity, speaking with people who can be a sounding board, offering different perspective. And once I consolidate all my data, I feel like, okay, I have a contingency plan. I have this set out. I have both certainty and uncertainty. Then I would take that bold step. And then whatever comes along the way, I'll just take it with grace.
Sorry, I wanted to add something based on what you shared, because it reminded me of a Buddhist philosophy that's been drilled into me over and over again. is that everything is impermanent. So even though you have this emotional sense of certainty, yes, this is the path I'm on, or yes, this is the path that I don't want to take, or whatever, it's based on the information and data that we have at this point in time. We cannot predict the future. 2 years ago, we didn't know COVID will happen, and all of our plans have changed. There are things in the environment and things in the universe that will happen beyond your control, and you'll put your life and your plans make you consider other things. So everything is not permanent, and your need for certainty and security comes from our deep-seated emotions for survival, for being secure, for being safe. So it taps onto what Cheryl shared earlier, that it's okay to be uncertain. It's just part of how we are built as human beings. But also know that life is uncertain anyway. It's gray anyway. We cannot predict anything. So it's also okay. Do what you need to do. Talk to people, make plans. Yeah.
Love it, love it.
Yeah, I really love your sharing today, Ling Ling, because I feel like you have a very balanced worldview that is both very harmonious with, the just the openness to the outcomes that come to you, but also not leaning to the extreme of like, just letting go of everything and just let's see whatever happens. You still have that pragmatism, you still have that practicality of planning, being very rational about things, which I feel is a very beautiful and harmonious way to view the world and its uncertainty. So I really enjoyed this episode, and I hope like by the end of our podcast, our listeners also, along with us in this conversation, feel at least comforted that they don't have to know 100% of what they do in life, and have a little bit of the clear steps from the insights that you share to how to feel less unstuck, or the stuckedness as you used.
Yeah, I love
And
that term.
yeah, stuckedness, yeah, and to be able to find that balance in certainty and uncertainty as well. So yeah, thank you very much for joining us in this episode.
Thank you so much, both of you, for inviting me onto your show. It's been so much fun speaking to both of you.
Thank you once again for tuning in. If you know of someone who could benefit from the perspectives shared in this episode, do hit the share button. Let them know that it's okay to not have everything figured out in life. Have a general plan, but also allow space to let the unexpected to unfold. You can also join our Telegram channel and share your perspectives about this topic. In the next episode, we will be learning about how to cultivate a mindset of abundance to get what we want in life. Till then, may you meet with the causes and conditions to fulfill all your meaningful aspirations, and may you stay happy and wise.